Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today is known as one of the first martial arts tricksters in open martial arts competitions and an early pioneer of non-traditional forms. He helped popularize the 540-degree kick and the Hawkeye kick in the mid-'80s, launched his film career when he was handpicked by Jet Li to be a stunt double in 1989 for a series of Hong Kong films. In 1990, he caught the eye of stunt coordinator Pat Johnson, and he was cast as Donatello in the films Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 and 3. He's worked as a stunt person and an actor on numerous other movies over the years and was even a regular on The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien. In 2010, he did his first stand-up comedy set at the Downtown Independent in Los Angeles. Please welcome my guest today, Mr. Stephen Ho. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, God, you had to mention that comedy bit?
Of course I did.
Awesome. That was actually, that was something that was on my bucket list. I was always, I know it's a martial arts podcast, but
go ahead.
Part of martial arts is overcoming your fears, right?
Yep.
And everyone has some sort of fears. And at that time, I'd done a lot of teaching, a lot of public speaking, but I had a fear of doing stand-up comedy because I had, many friends who were stand-up comics, and I would go to watch them practice. And when they bombed, you know what I mean? And I always just thought it was just so admirable for someone to go out there and just try and experiment with new material. And if it failed, to not take it personally.
Right.
Similar to like learning a new technique in martial arts, right? You're going to try it in class, even though you know it may not work, but you keep doing it until you get it. So to me, that was just like, wow, this is like crazy to do that.
That's impressive.
And I had done Conan a bunch of times, and I was talking to one of the writers, and just in passing, I said, yeah, one day I'm going to get the nuts to do stand-up comedy. I don't know how, but it's just one of those things I have to overcome because I feel like I'm so afraid of it,
Mm-hmm.
And they said Adam Yenser was one of the guys. Adam Yenser and Doug Caro, who are writers and producers on the show, said we'll help you write it. They helped write something for me, and then Stephen Wynn, who was locked into the AAIP community, had a Asian Pacific comic show that was coming up with some big names, and he asked if I would be interested to do it, and I said hell yeah.
Wow.
And then so that's what I did. I did it one time, and then that was it. I didn't really no desire to do it again, but I'll tell you what, after that I gained so much confidence in public speaking.
In me it was like I could never do that, but I used martial arts to help overcome my thing of speaking in public, and now I've been on stage in front of like 5,000 people. I couldn't. I mean, when I was a kid, I almost failed speech class in high school because I would not get up in front of the class. But like stand-up comedy, man, props to you. I could never, ever, ever do it. That's impressive.
Well, there you go. There you go. We got to hook you up now.
I don't think so. I'm good. I'm good. Cool.
You got to overcome that fear.
Nice. Well, what I want to do is I want to go back to the very beginning. I want to know where your martial arts journey began, kind of what led to it, where that first spark came from, and kind of what launched that for you.
Sure. Easy answer. Bruce Lee.
Nice.
I was probably 5 or 6, maybe, I don't know, 4, 5 or 6, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, VHS days, we were in a department store with my mom. I was in a department store with my mom, and this was during those times where you can leave your kids alone, so she could actually, She was in one section and I was in another section by myself. And so I was in the TV section, and there was a scene, the dungeon scene, the Enter the Dragon was on TV. And it just stopped me. It literally, first I heard the sounds and I looked, and I still get chills thinking about how I felt. It's like, what is this? What is this that I'm watching? I don't know what it is. I just know that this is what I'm going to do.
Wow.
And when the scene was over, I tried to rewind it, but I didn't know how to operate the machine, and it went to snow, and I thought I broke the machine, and I kind of ran away. And, I didn't want to tell my mom, to please try to rewind it because I thought I broke the machine. And that was it. And after that, that was literally my life goal. After that was to be like Bruce Lee, whatever that meant. And I didn't know it was Bruce Lee at the time. So concurrently with that, my dad used to love watching Ali. Loved to watch Ali, right?
Nice.
This is when it used to be on network TV, right, during the daytime, weekend or whatever. And so I used to watch Ali fights with him, and between that and Bruce, I was hooked, and that's what I wanted to do. But I got kicked out of preschool for fighting.
Wow. Okay.
Long story. I mean, it was a combination of coming here to the United States for the first time, not learning how to speak English or not knowing how to speak English. And I think I was, looking as an adult, I can see now, yeah, this kid was it was severe displacement, a lot of anxiety. And so I just started punching kids because I saw Ali punching. So I started punching kids, And so I think at that point, my parents or my mom was more like, no, you're not doing any kind of martial arts. Why would we weaponize you,
Right.
And so this went on for a while, and I would just watch Kung Fu theater. Do you remember Black Belt theater?
Oh yeah, definitely.
With Richie Baratheon. And I would just try to mimic the moves. My uncle would give me some O'Hara books every birthday and every Christmas, the Bruce Lee books. I would go to the library and rent Bruce Tanger judo books, and I just try to teach myself. And then by the time I was 12, we moved to a new area that was pretty secluded at that time. And there was really nothing for me to do except just kick rocks at the construction field, Right. And so my mom says, you got to do something. And I said, well, like I said, I want to do Kung Fu. I want to learn something. And so she goes, okay, that's it. You're in. So, wow, I was so excited. So she goes, pick any studio you want to go to. I had zero knowledge, knew no one in the martial arts at all. There was 2 studios that were close by to us. One was a Shotokan studio we went to. I was like, okay, that's cool. But honestly, in my head, I already had a negative feeling about, Shotokan only out of just watching Bruce Lee movies. How, he always had issues with the karateka, right?
Yep.
So I was like, okay, well, I don't think Bruce would like the school, so I'm not going to go to the school, right? Kind of silly, but that's all I knew. Then we went to an American karate studio, the Karate Institute of America. Richard King was the lead instructor there. And they also wore gis, which I did not like. But in our first meeting there, I don't even remember how he brought it up, but he mentioned Bruce Lee in a sentence. Something like Bruce Lee. I think he was describing American karate, how he was a Kenpo based. He was a Tracy Brothers black belt.
Yep.
But then he also branched off to do other things. And so I think he was relating that to Bruce Lee. But I didn't understand it all the time. All I heard was Bruce Lee. So the second he said Bruce Lee, I told my mom, that's it. I'm in. This is where I'm going. So that's how I got my start. And, it was, I would consider it more of an American karate studio than a Kenpo studio. But at that time, the base was all the Kenpo forms for me.
Wow.
Similar to your experience, yeah.
So then when you actually started, how long did you stay at that school, and what was it about that school? What are some things you remember maybe about your first few lessons or the first few months and that instructor that kind of made you want to stick with it?
I think it was just, it was the lifestyle. It was a different perspective that I had on life as a young man. And I started late meaning, for me, I was 12. So, a lot of people start when they're, I start my kids when they're 3, but I started kind of late. So for me, it was really like, wow, I'm 12, but I feel like I have a superpower. Not just physically, and a lot of the physical stuff, mind you, in my head, I was probably way better than I actually was. I probably thought that I could take on any adult, which I could not have, but in my mind I could. So I had tremendous confidence, but it was also just a way of looking at life and how to organize my life with discipline and approach to studying and practicing in order to attain your goals, meaning your different belts. And really, it was just that lifestyle that I really, really liked that gravitated towards me.
Nice. And do you remember what belt level and what age you first got interested in the competition side of things?
I think I was a blue belt.
Okay.
So pretty early on. I would say maybe I was 13 or 14. This was back in the heyday, right? So I don't know if you were in Southern California during the 80s.
No,
that was karate. It was Cobra Kai. I mean, karate was king.
Karate in the
and
Valley,
so
man.
there was There was a tournament every weekend.
Wow.
Every weekend there was sometimes multiple tournaments. So we would go. The majority of the tournaments that we went to was in Culver City at the Culver City Civic Auditorium.
Okay.
And then obviously once a year at the internationals.
Yeah.
But up and down from Alhambra to the Valley, every weekend there was a tournament. Santa Barbara, Victorville. I mean, everywhere. So I really enjoyed just going out there to do it. You know, it was just fun. It was fun for me.
Do you remember your first tournament?
I don't think I do.
Okay.
To be honest.
No problem.
I don't. I remember I did well, like right away. I did well right away.
Okay. And did you...
Which I feel was good and bad, you know?
Yeah. When you were competing, did you compete in sparring? Did you compete in forms? Did you compete in weapons? Or did you focus on one thing?
I competed in everything early on.
Okay.
You know, forms, weapons, sparring. But then as I got older and I became homeless... Long story there. But as I got older, I noticed that, you know, I really wanted to do this as a career, like something in the martial arts possibly. And I was looking at the people who I wanted to emulate who were actually making money in the film industry doing this. And I was like, you know, Keith Cook or Keith Harabayashi at the time, right? George Chung, the Reyeses, all those people. I was like, well, so what did they do? They competed in forums. They got discovered at the Battle of Atlanta, and then they got work. So I went for that, and that was kind of my goal. Like I would just envision that. Like I'm gonna kill it in forums. I'm gonna get noticed, and then I'll have a job.
So is that when you decided to start doing the NASCA events then?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't because of that.
Okay.
The first NASCA event I went to was literally just because it was at UC Irvine.
Oh, okay.
So it happened to be there because I couldn't afford to travel. So it happened to be there. And I just competed because it was there. And I'm like, oh, wow, there's going to be people from all over the nation here. That's really cool. So I competed in that. And then I don't think I did weapons then. I think I just competed in sparring and forms. And I think I got first in forms and second in sparring. And I didn't win grand champion in forms. So it was fine. It was, you know, it was good for me, but I didn't kill it overall, you know? Right. And then the next day or that Monday, I get a call from Anthony Chan. I don't know if you remember that name.
Sounds familiar.
Anthony was the first to bring wushu over from Beijing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He and his wife brought wushu to America, and he called me and he said, "This is Anthony Chan," and I knew who he was just from Black Belt magazines and stuff like that, but I didn't believe it was him, to be honest. And he said, I'm calling on behalf of Leilan Jay. And I was like, sorry, I don't know who that is. He's like, you may know him as Jet Li. At that time, no one knew Jet Li, right? I didn't know who he was. It was only Chinese films. And look, there was no streaming services, right? So you'd have to go down to little Saigon or Chinatown to rent some VHS tapes. So I didn't know who he was. And he says, you know, he saw you at the tournament and he'd love to bring you in to be part of a stunt team for his next film that he wants to shoot in LA. His first film that's going to be shot in California. Wow. It was in San Marino or something like that. And so he says it pays $200 cash a day. And I was like, whoa. I mean, this was like 1989.
Yeah.
And I was going to school full time at Pepperdine Satellite, but I had to also have a full-time job that was paying for my school. And then I was teaching and trying to train. Oh, wow. And then on my off nights where I could, I was working at Yellow Freight, loading and loading trucks during midnight shifts when people wouldn't show up because I was trying to get in the union so I could make a little bit more money. Wow. So I was swamped and I was falling asleep at work. My grades were dropping. I was pretty miserable. And so I thought, well, let me just give this a go. You know, what's the worst that can happen? If it doesn't work out, I can go back to my miserable life. You know? Yeah. Like school, I can always go back to school, you know, and I was just a few classes away. And so I did it. I loved it. And then, you know, I was fortunate enough for them to invite me back for another film that was shot in LA. And then Jet's manager at that time asked me to move to Hong Kong when they moved back to Hong Kong. And I was going to, and at the last minute, I just decided not to. You know, a lot of people talked me out of it because they said it was just going to be too dangerous. I don't speak the language, and there's no insurance for stunt guys. Like, you're going to end up a paraplegic in a year. You know, it just scared the shit out of me. Wow. So I didn't do that. And then that same group of producers in America was Golden Harvest. They were producing Ninja Turtles. And when they did part one, it was all a Hong Kong crew except for Ernie Reyes Jr., and I was shooting with Jet. And then when they did part two, Ernie became a character. He was Kino, killed that. And so I got the opportunity to play Donatello in part 2 and part 3.
That's awesome.
And since then, I literally fell into the business, and that was it, and has never turned back since then.
So when you were approached by Jet Li's people, you would have been what, like 16, 17 years old?
No, older.
Okay.
Maybe 19. I don't know. Maybe 19 or something like that.
That's still impressive, though. I mean, before you turned 20.
I was out of high school.
Okay.
It's all kind of a blur. I really don't remember everything.
Wow. I'm almost positive that I actually met you at the Diamond Nationals when you were there promoting maybe one of the Ninja Turtles movies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I used to go.
Yeah,
I never competed there, but I used to go and watch, friends compete and stuff. And I was there probably every event from probably 90 through like 95. And then probably 97 through 99. So I'm pretty sure one of those early 90s ones, you might have been there. You might have even maybe competed at one. Or maybe, did you compete still then, or had you given up competition by then?
No, I think after I was in the business, I never really liked the competition, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Like I liked it in the beginning my fondest memories are the local tournaments.
Okay.
Of like hanging out with friends and then, exchanging techniques and then meeting new friends and then training with them at their dojos and them coming to my dojos. Just like, to me, those are the glory days. The local tournament, I say local tournament, but in LA, it's like David Lee Roth was competing wushu. Danny Bonaducci was there. Ralph Macchio was there preparing for the Karate Kid, watching tournaments with Mr. Miyagi. It was crazy. So to me, those were the glory days. But once I got into the national circuit, I liked the attention. Who wouldn't? A young man at that age, right?
Yeah.
But I felt like, and I'm not knocking on anyone, right? Everyone has their own path and what they want to do. And it's just, everyone's path is different. Everyone's likes are different. You get out of martial arts, everyone gets different things. But for me, I didn't like that extremely small cultish community.
Okay.
I just didn't, there was a lot of people that felt very important because they would win a certain trophy, or they would, not even medals. You win this big plastic trophy, right?
Those 5-foot trophies from the Diamond Nationals. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, some of them were 6 foot, and you could even bring them on the airplanes back then, I literally brought mine on the airplanes back then.
Wow.
But I didn't feel that. I don't know how to. I'm trying to say this without being condescending, because I do not mean it at all. But to me, like the trophies and the medals, it's more of a personal victory, and it's not really an outside victory.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I'm not that important just because I won this. It's not that big of a deal, people.
Yeah.
And people are walking around like, that's it. I've reached my life goal. I'm a grand champion 10 times over. And then when I walk around this tournament and I puff my chest and people are asking me for autographs, I'm the king of this little pond. And I saw some people that were older than me that were still there doing that. And it's like, I don't want to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not me personally. I don't want to compete for 50 years. And take home the same medals. I just wasn't into that. And so at a certain point I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I love the community. So, I'll still go to support, to watch, to meet people, to promote stuff. But I just wasn't into the competition. I was more into like training for myself.
I get that completely. I'm the same way. I've done one tournament in my life. I like training other people for tournaments, but I've never been into the competition myself. So I completely understand that.
Yeah. I think the competition is a great way to test yourself, but I think you just don't want to get wrapped up in it where it defines you, because It should not define you. It doesn't mean, I remember back in the day, every tournament we went to had the title World Championship.
Yep.
It's like the Bakersfield World Championships, and so everyone and their brother was walking around like they literally were the world champions.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not the best in the world. You're the best in Bakersfield and whoever showed up that day,
Yep.
Even at the internationals. Okay, granted, there's people from all over that came to the internationals, but there was a lot more people that didn't show up.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like I needed to check myself,
To me, that makes perfect sense. That's not condescending at all. I completely agree and understand where you're coming from. So
it's great because now I have kids who compete, in jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and I try to give that mindset to them as well. And I know I've succeeded because I see like when they win a medal, it just goes in the closet or a drawer.
Nice.
Which I love. They're not framing them up. They're not bringing them to school to show. They're just like putting them away in a drawer. And if tomorrow a burglar came in or someone accidentally threw them all away, there would be zero love loss. No one would cry about it. No one would be upset because, hopefully they know that that does not define who they are. And that's just a symbol of hard work at that. And they happened to be the best at that particular tournament on that particular day against that particular person. That's all it means. Nothing more.
That's good.
Nothing more.
So I just looking through your IMDb, and I noticed you were in rock and roll high school forever. What was it like working with Roger Corman?
So that was my first SAG job. That was the job that I took instead of going to Hong Kong. I skipped over that because I didn't know you wanted to go down that rabbit hole.
I was just curious. So I'm a Roger Corman fan, so that kind of jumped out at me.
So that was, it's Corey Feldman.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, for Feldman. Yep.
That's Corey Feldman, and that was the sequel to Rock and Roll High School with the Ramones. And so I got that film. I don't know how I got it. I think honestly just out of confidence, of going into the audition because I didn't really know how to act, and the part was for a bass player. And so part of the deal of being in that movie is that we were going to start this band that could possibly go on tour and that was going to record a record and the whole thing.
Oh wow!
And so and I didn't know how to play bass, so we had. I can't remember. Someone from the Red Hot Chili Peppers taught us at that time.
Really?
I can't remember. I don't remember the details, but I remember it was big. I'd like to say it was John Frusciante, but I don't remember. But, we had great musicians. Mm-hmm. The band was 11. Natasha and Alan were the lead singers of this band, and they came in and they were the music coordinators, and they taught us how to play and how to Corey wrote songs, and we actually recorded several songs for a soundtrack and made some music videos that you can still find online.
No, you need to look for that. That's
pretty crazy. Like I could legit say I was in a band.
That's really cool.
Even though I can't sing worth crap and I cannot play worth crap.
Nice. That's awesome. And I just noticed you were on two of my favorite shows from the 90s, Walker, Texas Ranger and Nash Bridges. I love both of those shows so much. You're actually my second guest that's been on both of those shows. So
two of my favorites to work on as well.
Nice.
I'll tell you that. Those were the times.
So what?
Nash Bridges, amazing.
Yeah. So what did you enjoy more, being an actor in front of the camera or being a stunt person?
That answer has changed throughout the years.
Okay.
So back then I was just soaking everything in and I took what I can get. It's not like if there were jobs for me to act and, hey, you want to be the lead in this feature? Of course I would take it. Mm-hmm. But those jobs weren't around that often. So, at that time, and I'm sure still today, you take what you can get, So I took the acting jobs when they were offered to me, and when they weren't, I was fortunate to have a craft that I could work, that I could work as a stunt player.
That's cool. No, I mean that's just So how did the Conan? I'm just curious. The Conan O'Brien thing. How did that come about? Did they approach you? Did you have to audition for it? Did they see you somewhere?
So a good friend of mine who's one of my mentors in stunts, his name is Al Goto, and just a dear friend. And he called me and he said, hey, Conan O'Brien is taking over the Tonight Show. One of the writers, who's a friend of mine, called me. They're looking for a stunt coordinator for the show. And Al couldn't make it. And so he recommended me for the job. So I said, oh, that'd be amazing. Thank you. So, I met with the writer connected me with the producer, and she brought me in to look at the stage before they even started the Tonight Show. And it was just a very general meeting about what we can do stunt-wise. Mm-hmm. And it was so confusing to me because it was so vague that I had no idea what she was talking about. And I would just answer, oh, sure, we can do this or that. Like, I really don't even remember. And she called me back in at least 2 or 3 times to meet and talk again. And I still had no idea. I'm like, are you going to give me the job or not? You know what I mean? And then finally she says, hey, so, we're going to launch the show, the Tonight Show. The first day is this week. We'd like you to be on episode 7 as a guest. And I was completely confused because I thought they were hiring me as a stunt coordinator. Mm-hmm. And so I said, what's the date? Just to kind of bullshit her because I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And she said, the date is this. And I said, oh, I can't make it that day, but I can give you a referral of some other people who I think would be great. And she kept pushing the dates. And I was telling my wife about it. And she's like, why don't you want to do it? And I said, I don't want to be on camera because I'm 5'6". Conan is 11 foot tall.
Yep.
All he's gonna do is just make fun of me. He's just gonna make fun of me for being the short Asian guy. It's going to be like the Indian tellers on, the convenience guys on Dave Letterman, right?
Yep.
I said, I'm just going to get just goofed on the whole time. And I'd never seen Conan. Had I ever watched Conan, I would know that that's not his style.
Right.
He doesn't go for the low blow shots. He's too classy for that. But I didn't know that because I'd never seen the show and I didn't bother investigating because it was hard to at that time, right?
Right.
It wasn't like internet, you can just put it on. So then she finally kind of, not literally, but figuratively slapped me and like said, grow some balls and just do the show and see where it goes. So I called back and I said, okay, I would love to do it. And then that was it. Cool. Then it just happened. We did the first show and then I got a call the next day and she said, Conan loves you so much, he wants to bring you back. And then we just kept rolling and I don't know how many we did, but around a dozen, I would guess.
That's really cool. I mean, that's just what an experience. Considering you didn't want to do it, I mean,
I
obviously you're glad you did.
I would call that the highlight of my career so far, as far as my enjoyment.
Okay.
Yeah, because I not only, it was kind of like a stand-up thing. Like I was put into uncharted waters for me. Like now you're going to be funny with one of the funniest guys on the planet. It was a big challenge for me. It was a big challenge. I was nervous. Okay. And I just learned so much from him. I felt like I got an honorary master's degree in comedy just by, being around him and Rachel Whitley, the producer, so much and just picking their brains and getting notes from them. Nice. It was incredible.
How about movie wise? What is one or two of the movies that really stand out as highlights that you got to really showcase your skills and stuff? Maybe. I mean,
I'd go back and say Ninja Turtles. I mean, I wish I knew at that time that how valuable, how cherished of a moment that would be, because to me it was more like I did it, but I didn't know Ninja Turtles was gonna be that big for so long.
I don't think anybody did.
Had I known, I would have kept more of my costume, But I think that by far will always be etched in my memory because it was not only it was the first big film, but because it was so physically challenging. And that when we completed the day, it felt like you just ran a marathon. And it's like, whew, that was satisfying. Right. That was satisfying. And
you think about it, I mean, they've remade them, they rebooted them numerous times, but people just keep going back to those originals. The early 90s ones, they have such a, even my kids.
Well, I think it's because it's a different feeling, right? When you're looking at actual costumes as opposed to CG.
Exactly.
I think that's why different. It's like, oh, it's a different vibe.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I remember going to the first one opening night in theaters. And then I remember the first Diamond Nationals where they made the announcement that 2 or 3 of the guys who were in the suits are going to be there. I'm like, are you kidding me? So, drove the 100 miles just so we could go down there and meet you guys and stuff. So.
Oh my God. Yeah. It was amazing.
That's so cool. And you did part 3. So was that the one Vanilla Ice had the song for?
No, that was part 2.
Oh, that was 2.
He actually taught us how to dance. Yeah.
Really? Okay, so you got to work with Vanilla Ice. That's got to be a highlight too. Working with Vanilla Ice. I mean, come on.
It's one of the regrets of my life. He gave us all these Vanilla Ice. It's an Ice Baby. Uh-huh. These satin. Remember those satin jackets or the satin jackets that everyone used to wear?
Yeah.
So he gave us a satin Vanilla Ice tour jacket with my name on it. And at some point, I was like, what am I going to do with this? I think I just tossed it to Goodwill.
Oh, man.
I would be rocking that every single day.
Dude,
today
that's
if
so
I still
cool.
had that.
Man, that's awesome. I'd love to see that jacket, man. And yeah, someone, like you said, someone probably went to Goodwill and like, hey, look what I got for $5.
I hope to God someone's wearing that right now.
That is so cool. I'm jealous.
Yeah. Me too, whoever has it.
I want to back up a little. You had mentioned when you were talking that you had actually done some teaching when you were in martial arts. So what kind of led to that, and what did you enjoy about teaching?
I mean, I started teaching early on, I think, as most dojo kids, right? Mm-hmm. You grow up and then you start assisting classes. So I started teaching kids, like little peewee kids, and then started teaching adults and privates, like right away while I was in high school. It was like kind of my job, and frankly, I've never stopped.
That's good. So do you still do like private lessons? Have you ever run your own school?
No, I never had. That's something I could not do that. I just couldn't do it. I think it'd drive me crazy.
Okay.
I'm not that patient. I've taught a lot of people to get ready for film roles.
Okay.
which is really fun because then you don't have to go over the painstaking basics, you know?
Right.
And it's more like, okay, I have X amount of time to make it look like that you are the best in the world. And so it's like the challenge of working with, you know, someone and using their strengths and their coordination strengths and using those to make it look like that they are way better than they are. I love that challenge.
Okay. So then thinking back to when you first started doing it as a high school kid to now, where you still kind of do it, what do you think has really changed the most about your style of teaching?
Oh, great question. I think it's more about I'm not so set in my ways.
Okay.
Because especially as a teen, right, or a young adult, you know, or a fresh black belt, you think you know it. You really think you know it all. And as you get older, you realize, oh, you didn't know shit. All you knew was basics. All a black belt means that you have your basics down. That's what a black belt is, you know. And now I always teach different approaches depending on the person that I'm working with.
Okay.
So what works with your body style? What works with your endurance? What works with your age? You know, and I focus on that and have different approaches because there are now, you know, as you know, there are so many styles that are accessible to all of us.
Right.
You can open up YouTube or your Instagram page. It's like, oh, dang, I like the way he did that roundhouse kick better than this roundhouse kick, you know, and there's just different approaches. So now it's for me, teaching is like putting a puzzle together. And the puzzle is different for every person.
So is there one actor or actress that stands out as they almost like they were natural? They just pick it up so well and you're like, man, I could see them really doing this.
Yeah. Two, James Franco.
Nice. Okay.
Is one of the most, no, I'm not one of the most, he's the most dedicated actor I've ever worked with.
Wow.
And definitely one of the most coordinated people I've ever worked with.
Okay.
I worked with him on a lot of different films, but one of my most memorable, and we've traveled the world together, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my most memorable moments was I was prepping him for one film, Tristan and Isolde, which was a sword film, period piece, while he was working on Spider-Man at the same time here shooting in LA and New York. And so his schedule was packed because in addition to that, he would never miss his acting classes. And, you know, he's always reading. I mean, he's always got something going on. And so we would have to train at the park pretty early in the morning. You know, I don't know what time, it was different every time, but fairly early, you know, talking like 5 o'clock sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so one morning I get to the park at 5 o'clock, get there a little bit early, and I see him in his car sleeping.
Wow.
And so I'm like, what the fuck? So I lightly knock on his window, like, are you alive, you know? And I'm like, did you sleep here? And he goes, yeah, I had a late night shooting and I didn't want to miss our practice this morning.
Wow.
So I came straight to the park to go to sleep. And I figured he would wake me.
Dang. That's
so I was
impressive.
like, holy cow, that's dedication for a guy who was like the second lead in Spider-Man and the lead in this other film he was doing. And he's sleeping in the park because he doesn't want to miss one training session. Wow. So then I said, you know, because he was living, you know, like in the valley and he was shooting here closer in Culver City. So I said, you know, I have an extra room. I'm give you a key to my house. Come in whenever you want. And then I'll wake you up and we'll train in the morning.
Nice.
You know, so we did that, and and one time, you know, I heard him come in like late, like I want to say like 4 o'clock or something like that. And we had like a 5 o'clock training. And so I made the decision not to wake him up.
Okay.
And that was the first time he ever like lost his temper with me.
Really?
When he woke up at like a couple of hours later, he's like, why didn't you wake me up? And I said, you came in, I heard you come in at 5. I thought you need more than an hour because we have to work out and then you have to go to set. I was looking out for him and he was pissed. He's like, please don't ever do that again. Please don't ever do that again.
Wow. That is impressive though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Lenny James.
Oh, okay.
From Walking Dead. Morgan was his character. He picked up the bow staff like he picked it up like, I mean, he could have been Donatello, no problem, you know.
Very cool.
Like he really, really picked it up like incredibly fast.
That's awesome.
But there's several others, many others, but to me, those are the two top standouts.
And you don't have to give a name, but was there one that was just horrible and you're like, God, they're never going to get this? I'm sure there's probably been more than one, but like I said, don't have to give a name, but I'm sure you had a few.
I'm going to qualify this because there's been many.
Okay.
But it's really not even fair to say this because there's situations where you only have a certain period of time to work with them.
Oh, okay.
You know, for example, like I worked with Brad Pitt on Troy for 6 months. We had 6 months.
Wow.
And like 3 times a week, you know, so he got it down.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you have a lot of time, when you have like a month or more, even though the person may not get it right away, eventually within a month or 2 months, you'll be able to give them tools, go-to tools that are key that they can get for the scenes.
Okay.
But then the problem is oftentimes when people are hired last minute or their schedules are just, not workable and they're not as dedicated as Mr. Franco, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you only have like an hour sometimes a day, and then there's nothing you can do. And at that point, I just bail, and it's a discussion with the director producer and say, okay, we got to rely on a stunt double on, and then we work with the actor to hit certain poses or to do some certain things well that the camera can get,
Mm-hmm.
but it rarely works out, to be honest, because even though we're able to do that, and if a production is that unorganized, then generally the directing, the editing, everything is as unorganized and on different pages, and then it never turns out well. Just the way it is.
No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
So do you get time with your busy schedule? Do you get time for you to still work out and work on your martial arts stuff as often as you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I have 10-year-old twins,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're the focus of my training.
Nice.
Everything revolves around them. So like right now I'm sitting in my car at wrestling practice. So it's fun for me because I was never a grappler.
Mm-hmm.
And, we all know grappling is king,
Yep.
Once you're actually close with someone. And so I'm getting to, work on that for myself with them, which is really fun.
That's cool.
But yeah, I completely maintain, it's one benefit of being in the business is that you get to meet so many different people that are specialists in so many different areas.
Right.
And so, I have a small private gym really just for myself and my family and friends.
Okay.
And that we work out in. We all get together, at least once a week.
Nice. And you had mentioned your kids started at age 3. Now, have they been primarily like jiu-jitsu and wrestling the whole time? Did they start with a stand-up style or primarily ground?
So I had this when my wife was pregnant. I wasn't sure what to do, and it was occupying my brain like way too much. Of like, what do I put him into first?
Mm-hmm.
What do I do? Am I going to put him in Taekwondo first? Like, okay, it might not be the most functional right away, but then they'll get some kicks down, and they'll definitely have a strong discipline base.
Right.
Am I going to put them in? What am I going to do with them? And so I decided to do an experiment and do everything with them at the same time. Like you teach a kid different languages.
Mm-hmm.
You know how kids learn how to speak 2 or 3 different languages at a time.
Right.
And it's a little confusing for them, but then it clicks in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought I would try that if they had an interest in it.
Okay.
And they did have the interest. So right away we started dedicated wrestling, dedicated jiu-jitsu, and then I worked with them on stand-up.
Wow.
And then since then we've added capoeira, dedicated just capoeira.
Nice.
And then now they have, they're going to have their first Muay Thai tournament coming up. And we've been doing a lot of MMA. That's their new love.
Okay.
It's just to put it all together. And we don't do no head contact at all.
Right. Obviously.
I'm very
10 years
against
old.
that.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
I would agree.
So it's more like, it'd be like karate point fighting,
Mm-hmm.
but with wrestling and jiu-jitsu.
Okay. Cool. I was going to say, you mentioned capoeira. I want to chat with you a little afterwards because I haven't had a guest yet that does capoeira on my show. So if you have any recommendations, I'd love to chat about that.
Yeah. So capoeira, just talk now. I'd love to. So capoeira started during COVID when we had nothing to do, right? We were home and I was doing their school schedule and kind of, homeschooling them, and I had their schedule down. And my sister had introduced us to Airbnb experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, let's do origami with this lady in Tokyo. So I was like, what? It's like, how cool is that, right? So we took an origami class with this lady in Tokyo, and it was, very inexpensive, very reasonable.
Wow.
And then I started looking, and I found capoeira, and I'm like, hey guys, what do you want to do? And we did magic with the guy in Spain. We did a couple of these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, oh, capoeira in Rio. I'm like, whoa, that sounds really cool, right? So we took a class with Medusa, his name, in Rio de Janeiro, and he took a capoeira class, and that was 2 years ago.
Wow.
And they've been doing it 2 hours a week ever since.
That's so cool.
And we're actually going to his wedding.
Oh, wow.
Next weekend.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's moving here. And we've seen him twice. We're going to his wedding, and we've become very close. And they've become actually pretty good.
Okay.
Just all off Zoom.
That's impressive. That's I've always been infatuated with that style ever since I saw the movie Only the Strong. I'm just,
Yeah, I would highly recommend it. And if there's not a place where you can go to in person,
Mhm.
to get started or even longer, I would highly recommend it.
Okay, I'll have to look into it a little more. It'd be fun. I'm actually hoping I put a request in to have Mark Dacascos on the show. I'm not holding my breath, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd love
Awesome,
to
awesome.
chat with him. So who knows? But so
Awesome.
I know you
Yeah.
mentioned a little bit of you mentioned MMA. I'm curious now with your background in martial arts and stuff. Are you a fan of MMA? And kind of what are your thoughts on like MMA and the UFC?
How about my thoughts on MMA and not the UFC?
Okay, that works.
Okay. So I love MMA, but I feel like that there's a lot of negatives that come with it.
Yes.
And so the positives that come with MMA is obvious, is that it's a mixed martial arts. It's what Bruce Lee has been telling us to do for 50 years and no one listened to until UFC came out.
Exactly.
But so I love MMA because of the obvious reasons that it just has opened up an entire door to fast track the most effective martial arts style for each individual person.
Right.
Because as we know, it's about the matchups. So at one point grappling was king, but now stand-up is coming back, and now you have to learn everything. You have to know everything. It's just an amazing experience to just learn all these different things with an open mind, the way Bruce Lee had intended in the first place. The negative about it is that you lose the sense of tradition and respect.
Right.
You could take a 20-year-old athlete, who maybe has wrestled a little bit, and you can make that guy world champion in 3 to 5 years. No problem.
True.
No problem. No problem. He may not be the cleanest at jiu-jitsu. He may not be the cleanest at wrestling. He may not be the cleanest at kicking or punching. But overall, as an MMA artist, he may be the champ. And you can tell, that, right? You look at many of the champions and look at them. If you put them just in a jiu-jitsu match, they may get destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
You put them just in a boxing match, they would completely get destroyed. You put them only in a Taekwondo or a Muay Thai match, they would get destroyed. But you put them in an MMA match, they're going to beat everybody.
Right.
So positives and negatives. Another negative that I feel is just the lack of respect.
Yeah.
The trash talking. I'm completely not into that. I think that's the exact opposite of what martial arts symbolizes. And this is why I'm a really big fan of one championships. I'm a huge fan of one championships. I like the way they put on their events. I like the way that they have different rule sets where you can watch an event and there's jiu-jitsu, and then there's Muay Thai, and then there's MMA. And most of all, I love the respect that they demand from all their competitors.
Right. No, I agree
I
completely.
think they're doing it right.
Yeah.
I love the way they're doing it. And I'm not knocking other organizations. I'm not saying that there's obviously other fighters in other organizations that live by that code. GSP, Anderson Silva, Lyoto Machado. There's so many that live by that code. Michael Chandler. I think there's a lot that live by that code, but there's many that don't.
Yeah. You can tell the ones that have a traditional background. You can tell.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's many that may live by that code personally, but feel like that they have to be a trash talker in order to make money.
Right.
And that's sad. That sucks because no one should ever have to be in that position.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. So, all right. So in all your years of martial arts, is there one philosophy you've learned that rises to the top and you keep coming back to it?
Have an empty cup. It all boils down to empty cup. Your cup has to be empty. Otherwise it's never going, you're just blocking yourself from information.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not open to it. And just to stay open, even though you know that the information you're hearing might be wrong or it doesn't suit you, you still have to take it in, because then that's how you strengthen your own techniques. And then you know how other people are using techniques. You just have to always listen.
Right.
And it's great because that's the one lesson that I've taught my kids. You got to be like water, right? Just like Bruce Lee. You got to be water and you have to have an empty cup. And, they've learned how to do a single leg takedown at least 10 different ways from, 10 different people.
Mm-hmm.
And each time when we're done, they come to me and we talk about it and we're like, oh, he does it differently. She does it differently. This is how they do it differently. And then we figure out, oh, well, that would work in this scenario, but not in this one. Or maybe this is better overall, or maybe, that doesn't work for us. It only works for him because he's a 300-pound beast. You know what I mean? It's not going to work for a little guy.
Right.
But then how the big guys are going to go against you now.
Right.
So it's like just keep an empty mind and be open to how different people do things. So if you're a Taekwondo guy, you're not going to be, or a Shotokan guy, you're not going to be throwing punches with your hand at your armpit, your other hand on your armpit,
Right.
You should study from how a boxer throws punches,
I like that. That's cool. That's a good way to look at it. So, all right, I got a few fun questions to wrap it up here. Who are 3, 4, 5 names you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
Martial arts?
Yep. That can include boxing. It can, traditional martial arts. It can include, it's your personal. So they can be people and trained with. They can be someone like a Bruce Lee. It's your Mount Rushmore. And I've had people do as few as 2 names and as many as 8. So it's your Mount Rushmore.
Okay. I would start with Miyamoto Musashi.
Nice.
Famed swordsman. Number 2 would be Sun Tzu.
Cool.
Chinese general. Art of War.
Yep.
3, Bruce Lee.
Nice.
And then, holy cow, 4 would have to be, if you can make one face with half Helio Gracie and the other half Carlson Gracie.
There you go. Hey, that's a good Mount Rushmore. There's just some solid picks there. So
yeah.
All right. How about a favorite martial arts?
And then Muhammad Ali.
Oh, nice. Muhammad Ali. I like
Muhammad
that.
Ali.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. He's actually been picked. Him and Bruce Lee have probably been picked the most, I think.
Yeah.
When I've asked that question.
Gene LaBelle.
Yep.
Gene LaBelle. And then one more, and Dan Gable, wrestler.
Oh, not yeah, from Iowa. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So I had
the chance to meet him and I couldn't make it. I was so bummed. He was doing a seminar near here and I couldn't get out of work and I was so sad.
Wow.
Yeah, he would have been cool to meet. All right. How about a favorite martial arts book?
The Book of Five Rings.
Very cool. Solid pick. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're around my age, so you might have one for this, you might not, but do you have a favorite martial arts video game?
Oh God, everyone makes fun of me, but I love the original. What was it called? Battle. It was on the first PlayStation. Do you remember the martial arts game on the first PlayStation?
First PlayStation.
I can't remember. I can't even remember the name because that game made me so addicted to games that I had to stop playing games after I played that game.
Really?
And I haven't played games since then because I legit got addicted.
Really?
And I can't even remember the name now.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I mean, I had an original PlayStation. I cannot remember.
It was like one of the guys was the old Asian guy with a long beard.
Mm-hmm.
It was, like a Street Fighter-ish kind of game, but it was called Battle something. I can't remember.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't remember the name.
No, it's no problem. I know. I remember like Virtual Fighter. That's the one I was thinking of, but yeah, Battle something. Now I'm going to have to look it up because I'm curious. But
yeah. Battle Toshinden?
Oh, that sounds familiar. Yes.
Right? I think that was it. I think it was Battle Toshinden, yeah.
Okay, cool. These next few questions, you can't pick something you've been involved in. All right, how about a favorite martial arts TV show?
A TV show?
Yep, that you haven't been involved in.
I was going to say Walker, Texas Ranger, man.
I know.
Oh my God, I don't know if there's any TV shows that I haven't been involved in.
You can go like old school, like Kung Fu, or do you watch Cobra Kai? Yeah, I mean,
100% Kung Fu.
Okay.
Because Billy Jack was a series of films. Billy Jack didn't have that. Wasn't a series, right? That was a series.
Yeah,
of films.
That was movies. Yep.
Yeah. So if that was a series, that would have been number 1, Billy Jack.
Okay.
But Kung Fu, absolutely Kung Fu.
Nice. Now, did you ever watch the sequel, the Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, around like 93, 94?
I did not.
Okay. Just curious.
I did not.
I think I'm one of the only ones that watched it.
Yeah.
90% of my
I feel
guests
like I didn't want to be disappointed, So
that's probably why it didn't last more than like a couple seasons. But
yeah.
Okay. Same rule. Not one you've done. A favorite martial arts movie?
Well, I don't even think there's a question about that. Anyone whose favorite movie is not Enter the Dragon cannot be trusted.
Nice. Well,
literally, I cannot trust anyone.
See, and that's usually my number 2. And the only reason I say the original Karate Kid is because it's the reason I got into martial arts. Like I saw Enter the Dragon.
I'd be down with that.
Yeah. See, I saw Enter the Dragon and I loved it, but I'm like, I could never do that. That was in my mind. But when I saw Karate Kid when I was 10 years old, I'm like, God, maybe I could do this. So I mean, that's the one. And literally walked out of the movie theater to a local Tung Sudo school handing out free passes in the lobby. So that movie changed my life.
The action was so bad, and he was so uncoordinated that it's like, of course you can do that.
Exactly. So yeah, it changed my life. I joined literally 3 days later. I joined martial arts. So
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right, final one, and this one might be tough too for you because, like I said, again, can't be one you've been involved in. A favorite, and this one doesn't have to be martial arts. It can be, but just a favorite movie fight scene. And for this one, I've had people go anything from Rocky to Star Wars to Marvel to The Princess Bride and anything in between.
Oh wow. I'm gonna have to say Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Ice Cube scene.
Nice.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about in the dance.
Yeah.
The dance club. Just that whole scene was just so awesome, and then it just kept building and building and building. It's like, oh my God, what's going on? And then when he drops the jewel with all the ice cubes, because that's been knocked off so many times.
Yes.
And to me, it's like when something has been knocked off that many times, it's iconic.
Right.
And
that's cool.
that scene, like, I'm okay with martial arts scenes, but to be honest, I prefer the suspense and the thriller aspect and the drama behind a scene more than the action.
I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. So before I let you go, any new projects coming out you can talk about? Anything you want to promote that you have coming out?
I have some really fun things that I shouldn't be talking about.
Okay.
So I won't. But could I plug my kids?
Absolutely. Yeah. I wanted to get that in before the end because I know I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about that or not. So for sure, talk about that.
Oh yeah. So my kids, they're called the Twinges. You could find them on Instagram, Twinges Official.
Okay.
But they're going to be on America's Got Talent this summer.
That is so awesome.
And then they're on this really fun station, a YouTube station called the Ninja Kids, KIDZ, which the Milers started, a branch of West Coast guys, and but they're in Utah, and they started this station during COVID. There's a family of 5, and it grew to 20 million followers.
Wow.
So it's just it's gigantic, and all the kids are getting older and aged out. So they brought in my 2 kids to be among 2 of the 5 new Ninja Kids.
That's awesome.
So we've been shooting a lot of fun content for them, and I love it because I feel like that right now there's a void in the kids market.
Yes.
When we were growing up, there was Ninja Turtles, there was Power Rangers, there was I had Hong Kong Phooey. I mean, there was everything.
Sidekicks with Ernie Reyes Jr.
Yeah.
I love that show.
Now there's really nothing. There's Cobra Kai, which honestly to me, it's a fun show, but everyone is drunk every 5 seconds. I'm not really into that. I don't know why
kids.
I just don't know why every scene someone's got to be drunk when they're celebrating drunk or they're upset drunk, but everyone's drunk every scene.
Yeah.
So that kind of bothers me. I don't feel like there's a kids thing out there now other than, a new Ninja Turtles reboot that they keep rebooting.
Yeah, exactly.
But there isn't anything. Disney had a couple great shows. They had Kickin' It, which was amazing. I don't know why they canceled it. But there is nothing for kids. So, I love this station for my boys to be on because I feel like it's them influencing, hopefully, a new generation of karate kids.
That's awesome. And I'll put links for that out there if you want when I release the show and stuff and promote that. And do you know, have they said yet, like what month or when the show is going to be on for America's Got Talent?
They're so secretive about it, but they said this summer. So they said June. It's going to be June or July. Okay,
perfect. And I think you're.
I'll let you know once we find out.
Cool. Because I think your episode comes out. I think your episode will be like the first week of June. So it should give people time to watch for it and stuff. So that'll be awesome.
No, you're gonna love it. I don't want to give you a spoiler, but you're gonna love it.
Okay, I'm excited. I love that show when I get to watch it. It's tough. Yeah. Ever since I started this podcast, I don't watch as much TV as I probably used to. Yeah. But it takes a lot of my time, but I love doing it. So.
Awesome.
Well, I just want to thank you. This has been so much fun. I know, like I said, we've been trying to do it for a while, and I'm glad it finally worked into both of our schedules. And I truly appreciate your time, and it's been such a blast talking to you.
Yeah. Sorry again for, I know we were on the books for a while, and then work came up, and something would always come up. But I'm sitting here now in the parking lot at my kids' wrestling camp, so we made some time for you.
It's all good, man. It was worth the wait.
Awesome. Okay. Well, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.